Your life as a Viking Shield-maiden. Script. Hey guys, tonight we explore the what life would be if you wake up tomorrow, check in with your manager at work, and you get to spend a day in your life as a Viking Shield-maiden. We've all seen the pop culture version. Braided hair whipping in the wind, perfectly fitted armor, a knowing smirk before battle. But the real story? It's about a woman caught in an impossible position, living in a world that didn't quite have room for her, surviving conditions that would break most of us before breakfast. This isn't a tale of empowerment. It's a story of endurance against staggering odds, the cold, the violence, the isolation, and the grinding reality that history probably won't even remember your name. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from around the world. Now dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Here's the thing about becoming a Shield-maiden. Nobody wakes up one morning and decides it sounds fun. You don't choose this life the way you choose a career or a hobby. This isn't about empowerment or self-discovery. This is about survival when every other door has slammed shut in your face. Maybe your father died and left no sons, and suddenly your family's land is vulnerable to the neighbor who's been eyeing it for years. Maybe your husband was killed in a raid, and his brother expects you to marry him now. A man who makes your skin crawl, whose breath reeks of sour ale and whose hands linger too long. Maybe you were assaulted, and your family blamed you for it, and now you're worthless in their eyes, damaged goods that no man will want. Or maybe, and this is the one the sagas never quite spell out, you simply refused to be the thing they wanted you to be, and the punishment for that refusal was exile from everything you knew. Whatever the reason, you're standing at a crossroads that isn't really a crossroads at all. One path leads to submission, abuse, starvation, or shame. The other leads to something that might kill you, but at least lets you hold a weapon while it happens. You can feel your heart hammering against your ribs, your hands shaking, the awful weight of knowing that everything familiar is about to end. The smell of the longhouse, wood smoke and mutton fat, and the tang of fermenting ale suddenly seems precious because you're about to walk away from it forever. Your mother won't look at you. Your sister is crying. But whether it's from grief or relief that it's you and not her, you'll never really know. The village is gathered, watching with that particular Scandinavian mix of judgment and fascination. Someone mutters that you'll be dead within a season. Someone else spits in the dirt. You pick up the shield, heavier than you expected, rough wood against your palm, the leather grip worn smooth by someone else's desperate hands. You pick up the sword or the axe. The weight of it feels all wrong, unbalanced, like trying to write with your opposite hand. This isn't a movie montage. There's no swelling music. There's just you, terrified and stubborn and out of options, walking away from the only life you've ever known, towards something that probably won't even let you survive long enough to regret it. The worst part, the tiny, traitorous voice in your head that whispers, maybe you wanted this. Maybe some part of you always looked at the women bent over looms and grinding stones, at the endless cycle of pregnancy and childbirth and loss, and felt something crack inside. Maybe that voice is why no one fought very hard to keep you. Maybe they could smell the difference on you all along. You don't look back as you leave, not because you're brave, but because if you look back, you might turn around. And then where would you be? Nowhere at all. You thought arriving would feel like something. Instead, it feels like showing up to a party where everyone stops talking the moment you walk in. The warband's camp is a collection of rough shelters and smoking fires scattered across a windswept hillside that smells like wet dog, unwashed wool, and the latrine trench that's been dug too close to the living area. This is what you left everything for. This collection of mud and suspicious glares and men who size you up like you're a horse they're not sure is worth feeding. The Jarl, the leader who supposedly accepts women warriors, barely looks at you. He's eating something greasy off a wooden plate, wiping his fingers on his beard. "You know how to use that?" he asks, nodding at your sword. You say yes, because what else are you going to say? He grunts. "We'll see." That's it. No welcome speech. No acknowledgement that you've just burned your entire life down to be here. Just a grunt and a gesture toward the far edge of camp where you can throw down your bedroll. The other warriors are worse. They don't ignore you. That would almost be better. Instead, they watch. The way you walk, the way you hold your shield, the way you try to figure out where you're supposed to eat, sleep, or piss without anyone explaining the unspoken rules that everyone else learned months ago. A few of them smirk. One makes a joke in Old Norse that you don't quite catch, but the laughter that follows makes your cheeks burn. You pretend you didn't hear it. You pretend a lot of things that first day. There's exactly one other woman in the camp. For a brief, desperate moment, you think maybe she'll be an ally, someone who understands. She looks you up and down with eyes like chipped ice and says, "Don't expect me to hold your hand." Then she walks away. You'll learn later that she's been here 3 years and has survived by being harder, meaner, and more vicious than half the men. She didn't claw her way to acceptance just to have some scared newcomer make them all look soft by comparison. Her name is Astrid, and she'll become something between a rival and a ghost of your future. A warning about what you'll have to become to survive here. Your first task isn't glorious combat training. It's being told to help repair the sail on one of the ships. You spend hours with frozen fingers trying to work a bone needle through layers of wadmal, that thick, greasy wool that's been fulled until it's practically waterproof and absolutely impossible to pierce. An old man with 3 fingers missing watches you struggle and finally sighs, taking the needle from your hand like you're a child who can't tie her own shoes. He doesn't say anything. He doesn't have to. Food is distributed at sunset. There's a hierarchy to it that nobody explains, but everyone knows. The Jarl eats first, obviously, then his inner circle, then the proven warriors, then everyone else, then you. By the time the pot reaches you, you're scraping at whatever's stuck to the bottom, some kind of fish stew that's more bones and barley than actual fish, seasoned with salt and your own humiliation. It's cold. You eat it anyway, because you don't know when the next meal is coming, and your pride isn't filling enough to keep you warm. Someone's already taken the decent sleeping spot you tried to claim earlier. You don't argue. You move your bedroll to a new patch of ground that's somehow even more exposed to the wind. The wool blanket you brought from home, the one your grandmother wove, the one you watched her make over a winter when her hands were so gnarled with age she could barely hold the shuttle, is already damp from the coastal mist that creeps in after dark. You wrap it around yourself anyway, pulling your knees to your chest, trying to make yourself small enough to conserve heat. You can hear the sea in the distance, waves crashing against rock with a rhythm that sounds almost like mockery. Around the fires, the warriors are trading stories, their voices rising and falling, occasional bursts of laughter cutting through the wind. Someone's singing a saga about a battle you've never heard of, and the others join in on the chorus. The sound of it, that casual, careless belonging, makes your chest ache worse than the cold. You're not invited to those fires. You lie there in the dark, shivering, listening to the sounds of belonging happening without you, and realize with creeping horror that you've traded one kind of isolation for another. At least back home, people ignored you because you were familiar. Here, they ignore you because you're a curiosity at best, a liability at worst, and either way, not really one of them. Back home, you knew which corner of the longhouse was yours, which chores were expected, where you fit in the invisible web of kinship and obligation. Here, you know nothing. You are nothing. The glory you imagined? The sisterhood of warriors? The respect earned through courage? None of it is here. What's here is cold mud, suspicious stares, and the sinking understanding that acceptance isn't given on day one. It's earned through months or years of proving you won't break, won't quit, won't make them regret the risk of having you around. And you haven't even started training yet. Welcome to the lie you told yourself to get here. Training starts before dawn. which is less romantic than it sounds when you realize dawn in Scandinavia can mean 4 in the morning during summer, or barely at all during winter. Someone kicks your foot to wake you. Not gently. You jolt upright, disoriented, your body screaming from sleeping on frozen ground. And there's Astrid standing over you with an expression that says she's already disgusted by your existence. Up, she says, unless you want to explain to Bjorn why you're still sleeping. Bjorn, you'll learn, is the second in command and the one actually responsible for turning useless recruits into something that won't get everyone killed. Astrid walks away before you can ask any follow-up questions, like who Bjorn is, or where you're supposed to go, or whether you're expected to have eaten first. You stumble toward where the others are gathering, your legs stiff, your back a symphony of pain. Every muscle you didn't know you had is announcing itself through strategic agony. And you haven't even done anything yet. That's just from sleeping outside like a feral dog. Bjorn is a brick of a man with a face that looks like it's been used as a whetstone. He doesn't waste time on introductions. Shield wall, he barks, and everyone moves into formation with practiced ease. Everyone except you. You stand there holding your shield, watching them slot together like a puzzle you don't have the pieces for, and Bjorn's eyes land on you with the enthusiasm of someone who's just stepped in something unpleasant. You, he says. End of the line. Try not to die. The shield wall drill is supposed to teach you how to fight as a unit, how to overlap shields and present an unbroken face to the enemy. In practice, it teaches you that your shield is heavier than you thought possible, that your arm wasn't designed to hold that weight at shoulder height for extended periods, and that the person next to you, a man named Ulf, who smells like he's been dead for 3 days, resents having to cover for your mistakes. Bjorn has the frontline advance, then retreat, then hold, then advance again. Your shoulder is on fire, your forearm is cramping. The shield's edge keeps slipping and banging against your shin, and you're pretty sure you're bleeding under your pants, but you don't dare check. Tighter, Bjorn yells. Your enemy isn't going to politely wait while you figure out where your feet go. Then comes the fun part. He has warriors from another group charge the shield wall. This is where you learn what it actually feels like to have several hundred pounds of angry. Norsemen slam into your shield at a dead run. The impact rattles your teeth. Your feet slide backward in the mud. The person behind you don't even know his name, shoves you forward with a curse, forcing you back into position. Your wrist bends at an angle that makes you see stars. Hold! Bjorn screams. If you break, you die! Everyone behind you dies! Hold! You hold. Barely. Your legs are shaking. Sweat is running down your back despite the cold. Your hands are cramping around the shield grip so hard you're not sure you'll ever be able to let go. They charge again. This time you're ready for the impact, which doesn't make it hurt less, but at least you don't stumble. Small victories. The kind of small victories that leave you with bruises blooming across your ribs and forearms like rotting fruit. After shield drills comes weapons training, and this is where the humiliation really begins. You're paired with a boy, actually a boy, maybe 15, for sparring practice with wooden swords. He's been here 2 months. He beats you effortlessly, over and over, hitting your sword aside and landing blows on your arms, your legs, your ribs. The wood is blunt, but it still hurts like hell. Each impact is a fresh bloom of pain that you know will turn purple by evening. Faster, Bjorn says, watching with arms crossed. Not louder, not angrier, just stating a fact, faster, as if it's that simple. As if your muscles aren't screaming, your lungs aren't burning, your hands aren't bleeding where the wooden hilt has rubbed the skin raw. The boy, his name is Eric, looks almost apologetic when he cracks you across the knuckles hard enough that you drop your sword. Almost. Not quite enough to actually ease up. He's been where you are. He remembers. And he's not going back there. You pick up your sword. You get hit again. You pick up your sword. The cycle continues until Bjorn finally calls a halt, and you stand there gasping, bleeding from a split lip you don't remember receiving. Your entire body one massive bruise in the shape of a lesson. Better, Astrid says, as she walks past. It's the first, almost positive thing anyone has said to you since you arrived. You're pathetically grateful for it, which makes you hate yourself a little. Lunch is dried fish that tastes like salted leather and stale flatbread. You eat with shaking hands, barely able to grip the food. Around you, the others are joking, laughing, critiquing each other's form. You're not part of that conversation. You're still the outsider, the one who slowed down the shield wall, the one who got beaten by a child. Afternoon training is more of the same, running drills in full gear until someone vomits. Probably you. More sparring, more bruises, more small failures that add up to a comprehensive understanding that you are currently useless. By the time evening falls and you're finally released, you can barely walk. Your hands are bleeding, your ribs are bruised, your legs are rubber. You collapse onto your bedroll and lie there staring up at the darkening sky, wondering if you'll even be able to move tomorrow. You will. Because the alternative is admitting defeat, and you didn't burn your life down just to quit on day one. This is what earning your place looks like. One bruise, one humiliation, one small survival at a time. Here's what the sagas don't tell you. Being a warrior is maybe 10% glorious violence and 90% maintenance, boredom, and trying not to freeze to death. Nobody writes epic poems about mending your trousers for the third time this week, because the seams keep splitting when you do shield drills. Nobody immortalizes the hour you spend trying to work oil into your leather armor with fingers so cold you can barely feel them, knowing that if you don't maintain it, the leather will crack, and then you'll be even more useless in a fight. The skalds don't sing about the morning you wake up and realize you've started your monthly bleeding, and you have exactly zero privacy, zero spare cloth that isn't already filthy, and zero sympathy from anyone around you. Welcome to the reality of warrior life. It's mostly just camping, but everyone's armed and no one likes you. Your hands are always doing something, sharpening your blade on a whetstone, the rhythmic scrape of metal on stone becoming a kind of meditation. Checking your shield for cracks, reinforcing the rim where someone's axe bit into it during practice. Sewing. So much sewing. The wool tunic that seemed sturdy when you left home is developing holes at an alarming rate. Your socks, those precious wool socks that are the only thing between you and trench foot, need constant darning. You sit by the fire doing this work while the men tell stories, and you're invisible again, just hands doing domestic labor, while the real warriors plan real things. The food is its own special nightmare. Breakfast, when it happens, is leftover porridge from the night before, congealed into a grey mass that you eat cold, because no one's bothering to heat it up for the stragglers. Lunch is dried fish or dried meat, so heavily salted that your lips crack and your tongue feels like leather. Dinner is stew, always stew, made from whatever was hunted or traded for, boiled with barley and root vegetables until everything has the same grey, defeated texture. You dream about fresh bread, about butter, about apples, about anything that isn't preserved in salt or smoke or both. Once, someone brings back honey from a raid, and the way the warriors react, you'd think it was gold. You get a fingertip's worth. It tastes like a memory of sweetness, gone before you can really savor it. The cold is constant. Even in summer, the coastal wind cuts through everything you're wearing. You learn to sleep in layers, tunic, overdress, cloak, wrapped in your increasingly disgusting wool blanket. You learn that wet wool still insulates, which is good because everything is always damp. The salt. Air, the morning fog, the rain that feels like it's been falling since the world began. Moisture is a fact of life. So is the smell, wet wool, unwashed bodies, the latrine trench, wood smoke, fish, salt. You stop noticing after a while. Or maybe you don't stop noticing, you just stop caring because there's nothing you can do about it. The boredom is somehow worse than the exhaustion. There are days, sometimes weeks, where nothing happens. You train, you eat, you maintain your gear, you sleep. Repeat. The sameness of it starts to feel like drowning in slow motion. You watch the horizon and nothing changes. You wait for orders that don't come. You exist in this liminal space between the life you left and whatever comes next, and the waiting starts to feel like its own form of torture. This is when the doubts creep in. When your hands are busy with some mindless task and your brain has nothing to do but replay every choice that led you here. Was it worth it? This cold, this isolation, this endless grinding maintenance of a life that hasn't actually included any of the glory you imagined? You've been here weeks now, and the closest you've come to combat is getting beaten in practice by people who are barely trying. At night, when you can't sleep because your hip is bruised from sleeping on rocks, or your shoulder aches from holding a shield all day, you stare up at the stars and try to remember why you thought this was better than staying home. The honest answer, that home wasn't actually an option anymore, doesn't make the present any easier. Astrid catches you staring into the fire one evening, that blank look on your face that says you're somewhere else entirely. Homesick? She asks. There's no sympathy in her voice, just curiosity. No, you say, and it's true. You're not homesick. You're sick of here, but you can't go back there. You're stuck in between, belonging nowhere, and that realization settles into your bones like the cold. Good, Astrid says, because this is home now, this mud, this boredom, this bullshit. Get used to it. She walks away, and you sit there, understanding that heroism isn't a moment. It's a choice you make every single day to keep existing in circumstances that grind you down into nothing. This is the saga they won't sing. The boring, cold, lonely reality of survival. The announcement comes on an ordinary morning, which somehow makes it worse. We sail at high tide, Bjorn says, like he's discussing the weather. Monastery on the coast, lightly defended, easy pickings. Around you, the warriors respond with nods and grunts, the casual acknowledgement of people who've done this 100 times. You stand there with your heart suddenly trying to punch through your ribs, realizing that this is it. Your first raid. The moment you've been training for, dreading, and somehow still not ready for despite weeks of preparation. The ship is already being loaded when you arrive at the beach. Weapons, shields, supplies, the strange, quiet efficiency of men preparing for violence. You help drag the vessel to the water, your feet slipping in wet sand, salt spray already soaking through your clothes. You climb aboard and find a spot at an oar, because of course you're rowing. The proven warriors get to rest before the fight. You get to exhaust yourself getting them there. The rhythm is harder than you expected. Pull and release, your shoulders burning, your hands developing new blisters on top of old ones. Hours blur together in the monotony of it. The coast slides past, grey and unchanging. Someone starts a rowing chant and the others join in, their voices rising and falling with the oar strokes. You're part of it now, swept along by rhythm and momentum towards something you can't stop. The monastery appears as the sun descends, a cluster of stone buildings on a rocky outcrop, a wooden cross visible against the sky. It looks peaceful, small, vulnerable. Your stomach knots. Fast and hard, Bjorn says as the ship scrapes shore. Grab what you can carry. Don't get separated. He looks directly at you. Don't be a hero. Heroes die stupid deaths. Then everyone's moving, jumping into shallow water, weapons raised, voices rising in war cries that sound more like animal sounds than anything human. You follow because what else are you going to do? The cold water soaks through your pants, but you barely notice. Your entire body is flooded with something between terror and electric clarity. You're running. The monastery is right there. Figures in brown robes scatter like startled birds, their mouths open in shouts you can't hear over the blood pounding in your ears. A door splinters under someone's axe. You're inside now, the dimness smelling like incense and stone and fear. Astrid moves past a cowering monk without even looking, heading straight for the altar where gold candlesticks gleam. She grabs them like she's shopping at market. Another warrior is smashing open a chest, tossing aside illuminated manuscripts. Useless, can't eat books, searching for silver. Someone screams outside. Not a monk. One of your own. The sound cuts through everything, raw and animal, reminding you that not all monasteries are undefended. You're standing frozen, sword in hand, mind unable to process what you're supposed to do. A monk runs past you toward a door, and you just let him go. You can't make your body stop him. He's terrified, running for his life. Move! Astrid shoves you aside, chasing after someone else. You force yourself into a storage room. Sacks of grain, dried fish, wheels of cheese, food. You can take food. That feels less terrible than the alternatives. You grab a sack, slinging it over your shoulder. That's when you see it happen. A young monk, maybe your age, backed into a corner by Halvard. A warrior you've barely spoken to. The monk is crying, babbling, holding up his hands like that might stop what's coming. Halvard's axe is raised. His face is completely casual, almost bored. The axe comes down. The sound it makes, wet, crunching, final. The way the body drops. The smell that follows, copper and shit. Because that's what happens when people die and nobody mentions it in the sagas. Halvard wipes his axe on the monk's robe and walks past you. Grab what you can, he says. We're leaving soon. You stand there holding your sack of grain, staring at the spreading pool of blood, and something inside you that was still soft, still believing in meaning or justice. That thing dies as thoroughly as the monk did. Outside, the monastery is burning. Someone torched the thatch roof. Smoke rises into grey sky. You're running back to the ship with the others, arms full of plunder, mind blank with shock. On the return voyage, everyone's almost celebratory, comparing what they grabbed, laughing about near misses. Someone passes around ale looted from the monastery. When it reaches you, you drink deeply, trying to drown the image of that monk's face. It doesn't work. Your body rose automatically while your mind replays everything. The screaming, the blood, the casual violence. This is normal to them. This is just work. The monk died for candlesticks. You helped burn down a place of learning for grain and silver. That night, lying in your bedroll, you can still smell the smoke, still see the blood, still hear that scream. This is what you wanted, you remind yourself. This is what being a warrior means. The realization that you'll have to do this again, many times if you survive, settles into your chest like a stone. Welcome to your first raid. Chaos, blood, and the understanding that survival is just luck wearing a helmet. The injury happens on a nothing day, during a nothing drill, in a way that's almost embarrassing. You're practicing footwork, basic stuff, the kind of exercise you've done 100 times. When your boot catches on a rock hidden in the mud, you twist as you fall, trying to catch yourself, and your knee bends in a direction knees aren't supposed to bend. The pop is audible. So is the sound you make, a strangled gasp that's half shock, half pain that whites out your vision for a moment. Get up, Bjorn says, because of course he does. Warriors don't have time for weakness, and a twisted knee during practice is weakness personified. You try, you genuinely try. But when you put weight on the leg, something grinds inside the joint and your knee buckles. You go down again, harder this time, tasting blood where you've bitten your tongue. Astrid appears above you, her expression unreadable. Can you walk? I don't know, you admit, and the humiliation of it burns almost as much as the pain. She hauls you up, letting you lean on her shoulder, and half carries you back to camp. Nobody offers to help. Nobody asks if you're okay. They just watch you limp past, and you can feel the calculation happening behind their eyes. Will she recover? Is she liability now? How long until she's useful again? The camp has no healer, no medicine beyond what people know from their mothers and grandmothers. An old woman named Gunhild, someone's aunt, you think, who travels with the war band to cook and mend, takes one look at your knee and grunts. Twisted bad, she says, maybe torn inside. Nothing to do but rest it and hope. Hope. That's your treatment plan. Hope and trying not to put weight on it while living in a camp where everything requires physical labor. The first week is the worst. Your knee swells to twice its normal size, hot and angry, and throbbing with a pain that never quite stops. You can't train. You can't help with camp work. You can't do anything but sit there feeling your value drain away with each useless day. Gunhild makes you a poultice that smells like death, and possibly is death. Some mixture of herbs and fat that she slathers on and wraps with cloth. It might help. It might do nothing. There's no way to know. The cold makes everything worse. As autumn slides into winter, the temperature drops, and your knee becomes a weather prophet, aching and stiffening whenever storms approach. You wrap it in extra layers of wool, but the cold seeps through anyway, settling into the joint like it's made a home there. You try to train anyway because sitting idle means becoming irrelevant. You practice sword work from a seated position. You do upper body exercises. You work on your shield arm. But everyone can see you're compromised now. During drills, you're left out. When raid plans are discussed, nobody looks your way. You've become what you feared most, a burden. Winter in a Viking war camp is its own special hell. The days are short, brutally short, with the sun barely dragging itself above the horizon before giving up and sliding back down. The darkness is oppressive, endless, broken only by fires that never seem to give quite enough heat. Your breath freezes in the air. Your clothes are permanently damp. The wool against your skin chafes until you have raw patches that never quite heal because nothing dries, nothing warms, nothing gets better. Food becomes scarcer. The raids have slowed because winter seas are suicide, and the supplies you raided in autumn are dwindling faster than anyone planned. Portions shrink. The stew gets thinner. You watch yourself getting gaunt, your hands becoming more bone than flesh, your face hollowing out. Everyone's hungry. Everyone's cold. Everyone's miserable. But at least the others are useful. Your knee doesn't heal right. Even after the swelling goes down, it's weak, unstable. You can walk on it, but you can't trust it. During your first attempt at shield drill after the injury, it gives out in the middle of a charge and you go down in a heap. The others have to break formation to avoid trampling you. Bjorn doesn't say anything. He doesn't have to. His disappointment is loud enough. That night, you overhear a conversation you weren't meant to hear. Two warriors talking by the fire, their voices low, but not low enough. "She's done," one says. "Knee like that, she's useless in a shield wall." "Might heal more," the other offers, but without much conviction. "Or might not. Dead weight either way. Wonder how long before the Jarl sends her off." You lie in your bedroll, staring up at the dark sky, and feel the future narrowing. This is how it ends for warriors who don't die gloriously in battle. Not with a bang, but with a whimper, with a body that betrays you one piece at a time, until you're no longer worth feeding. The cold settles into your bones, not just the weather cold, the deeper cold of understanding that your body is a tool, and tools that break don't get fixed. They get replaced. You're 23 years old, and you're already aging out of relevance. Your knee aches, your hands are scarred, your back hurts from sleeping on frozen ground. You look at Astrid, 30-something, still strong, still feared, and wonder what price she's paid to last this long. What parts of herself she's sacrificed to stay useful. Winter stretches ahead, endless and unforgiving. Your knee throbs. Your stomach is empty. Your purpose is slipping away like melting snow. This is the long winter, when your body starts to fail and you realize that survival isn't glorious. It's just postponing the inevitable, one cold morning at a time. Spring comes eventually, the way it always does. Slowly, grudgingly, like the world can't quite remember how to be warm. Your knee has healed enough to be functional, which is different from healed. You can fight, you can train, you can hold your place in the shield wall without collapsing. But there's a hitch in your step now, a slight favor of your good leg that everyone notices even if they don't mention it. You're marked, compromised, not quite what you were. The Jarl keeps you on, which should feel like a victory. Instead, it feels like being tolerated, like he's waiting to see if you'll prove yourself worth the food you eat, or if you'll just fade away on your own and save him the trouble of making a decision. You throw yourself back into training with desperate intensity. Earlier mornings, later nights, pushing through pain that your knee insists you acknowledge. You need to prove you're still valuable, still viable, still worth the space you occupy. But intensity isn't the same as belonging, and effort doesn't equal acceptance. The problem is this: you don't fit anywhere anymore. The women in the settlements you pass through, the normal women, the ones who stayed, look at you with something between pity and distaste. You're a curiosity at best, a cautionary tale at worst. When the warband stops for supplies or shelter, you watch them in their longhouses, working their looms, tending their children, moving through domestic rhythms you've almost forgotten. One of them tries to include you once, gesturing for you to help card wool, and you sit there with the raw fleece in your hands feeling like you've forgotten how hands work. The motion that used to be automatic now feels foreign. Your fingers are too rough, too scarred, moving wrong. "You've been away too long," the woman says, not unkindly. But the message is clear. You're not one of us anymore. Fine. You're a warrior now, right? Except, you're not really that either. The men around the fire at night, they have their own rhythm, their own jokes, their own unspoken hierarchy. You're allowed near the fire now, which is progress from your first months, but you're not quite in the circle. You're adjacent to it, close enough to hear the stories, not quite close enough to tell them. When the ale goes around and tongues loosen, they talk about women they've bedded, raids you weren't part of, shared experiences that don't include you. You sit there silent, neither man enough to join the conversation, nor woman enough to be what they're talking about. Astrid is no help. She's carved out her own space through sheer viciousness and years of proving herself. She doesn't need friends or belonging. She has fear and respect, which apparently serve just as well. When you try to talk to her about the isolation, she just shrugs. "Get used to it," she says. "This is the price." But nobody told you the price was living in permanent exile from both worlds, you know. There are moments when it hits you particularly hard, like when the warband celebrates after a successful raid and the men are grabbing at the captive women, and you're standing there not sure if you're supposed to be guarding them or if you're somehow in danger yourself. Nobody touches you. You're too strange for that, too other. But that protection comes from being seen as not quite woman, which has its own particular sting. Or when you're injured, nothing serious, just a gash across your forearm that needs stitching. And Gunhild tends to you with rough efficiency, but none of the soft words she offers the men. "You chose this," she mutters, pulling the needle through your skin. Don't expect gentleness. Or when you pass through a village and see a mother with her daughters, teaching them to spin or bake or whatever small skill will define their lives, and the look she gives you is pure incomprehension. What are you? Why would you choose this? Her daughters whisper and stare, and you realize you're the monster in their cautionary tale, the one who left, the one who rejected everything proper and good. The loneliness of it becomes its own kind of violence, not the sharp, sudden violence of a blade, but the slow erosion of never quite belonging, never quite being understood, never quite having a place where you fit without questions or qualifications. You try to build connections. You really do. You joke with Eric, the young warrior who used to beat you in practice. You offer to help Ulf repair his shield. You sit with the others during meals, forcing yourself into conversations that don't quite want you. But there's always a gap, always a moment where the conversation shifts, and you're reminded that you're not quite one of them. The worst part, you can't even articulate what you're missing. It's not that anyone's particularly cruel. It's just that you exist in a space that wasn't designed for you, and your presence makes everyone, including yourself, slightly uncomfortable. At night, in your bedroll, you sometimes wonder what would happen if you just left. Not back home. That bridge is ashes. but somewhere else, somewhere new. Start over where nobody knows you as either the woman who left or the warrior who doesn't quite fit. But where would that be? The world isn't that big. Every place has women's spaces and men's spaces, and you belong fully to neither. So you stay, you train, you fight. You exist in the margins, too hard for the women's hall, too foreign for the warrior's fire, and the loneliness of living between two worlds becomes its own kind of death, slower than a blade, but just as thorough. This is neither here nor there, the permanent exile of choosing a path that has no clear destination. You're 27 when you first notice you're slowing down. Not dramatically. Not in any single moment you can point to and say, there, that's when it started. It's subtler than that, more insidious. You reach for your sword one morning and your shoulder catches, a little hitch of pain that wasn't there last year. You take a blow to your shield during practice and your wrist aches for 3 days afterward. Your knee, that old injury from 2 winters ago, now predicts weather with unsettling accuracy, throbbing dully whenever storms approach. 27. You're 27 years old, and your body is already keeping a tally of damage you can't repay. The younger warriors are faster now, not just Eric, who's filled out into a genuinely skilled fighter, but the new recruits who show up each season, fresh and undamaged and hungry to prove themselves. They have reflexes you don't anymore. They recover from training faster. They don't wake up stiff and aching, needing half the morning to work the soreness out of their joints. You watch a new girl arrive, barely 16, all defiance and desperation, and you see yourself 5 years ago. She looks at you like you're ancient, like you're what she'll become if she survives long enough, and she can't decide if that's inspiring or terrifying. Probably both. Astrid is 34 now, and you're starting to see the cracks in her armor too. She hides it better, compensates with experience and viciousness, but you notice the way she favors her left side after long days, the way she drinks more than she used to, dulling edges that have gotten too sharp to live with. She catches you watching once, and her expression is pure warning. Don't acknowledge it. Don't make it real by speaking it aloud. The raids are harder now, not because the targets have changed, but because your body protests every step of the way. The rowing that used to be merely exhausting now leaves your hands cramped into claws for hours afterward. The running that used to get your blood pumping now just gets you winded. You can still fight. You're experienced enough that skill compensates for declining speed. But it's getting harder to ignore the arithmetic of it all. You're aging out, slowly but inevitably, like ice melting. There's a raid on a coastal village, nothing special, routine violence for routine plunder. And you take a spear thrust to your side that your younger self would have dodged easily. It glances off your ribs instead of punching through, so you're lucky. But the fact that you didn't see it coming fast enough is its own kind of defeat. The bruise that blooms across your torso is spectacular, purple and black and yellow, and it hurts to breathe for a week. Gunhild wraps your ribs and doesn't say what you're both thinking. You're slowing down. And in this life, slowing down is the same as dying. The worst part is the fear. Not the sharp fear of battle, you've made peace with that, but the slow, grinding fear of irrelevance, of becoming a burden, of reaching the point where you're more liability than asset, where keeping you fed is charity rather than investment. You've seen it happen to others, warriors who stuck around too long, whose bodies gave out before their pride did. They disappear quietly, sent off to some farm to live out their days doing light work, forgotten by everyone except themselves. You train harder, trying to outrun the inevitable. Up earlier, practice longer, push through pain that's trying to tell you something important. Your body is screaming slow down, but you can't, because slowing down means admitting defeat, and you didn't sacrifice everything to admit defeat at 27. But the shield gets heavier every season. That's the thing nobody warns you about. It's not that shields actually increase in weight. It's that your arm gets weaker, your shoulder more damaged, your grip less reliable. The shield you carried with gritted teeth at 17 is becoming genuinely difficult to manage at 27. During a long shield wall drill, your arm starts shaking. actually shaking, visible tremors that you can't control. You lock your elbow, trying to hide it, but Bjorn sees. Of course he sees. He doesn't say anything. That's almost worse. That night you sit by the fire, watching the younger warriors, and realize with creeping horror that you're closer to the end than the beginning. 5, maybe 6 more years if you're lucky and careful. 10 if you're extraordinarily fortunate. And then what? You've built no other life, learned no other skills. You've made yourself into a weapon, and weapons have a shockingly short, useful life. You look at Astrid across the fire, and for the first time you see her clearly. A woman in her mid-30s holding on with fingernails and fury, knowing that every season might be her last, that her body is betraying her incrementally, that she's one bad injury away from obsolescence. Is that your future? Another 7 years of slowly breaking down, of compensating for declining speed with increased ruthlessness, of drinking away the knowledge that you're running out of time? There's no retirement plan for Viking warriors, no pension, no peaceful cottage, no gentle fade into comfortable old age. There's just the fight until you can't fight anymore. And then there's nothing. Your knee aches, your shoulder catches, the shield gets heavier. You're 27 and the math is already done. This is when the shield gets heavy, when you realize your body has an expiration date and you're already past the halfway point. There's a skald who travels with the war band sometimes, an old man named Thorvald, with a voice like gravel and a memory that supposedly stretches back 40 years. He knows hundreds of verses, thousands maybe. He can recite the lineages of jarls and kings, recount battles fought generations ago, sing the deeds of warriors whose grandchildren are now grey-haired themselves. Around the fire at night, he performs these sagas, and the warriors lean in, hungry for the promise of immortality through story. Be brave enough, fierce enough, memorable enough, and Thorvald will weave you into verse. Your name will outlive your body. You'll achieve the only afterlife that really matters, being remembered. Except here's what you've learned, watching Thorvald over the years. He's extremely selective. He sings about the Jarl, obviously, about Bjorn's father, who died gloriously in a raid 20 years back, about a Shield-maiden named Hervor, who supposedly fought in a legendary battle up north, though you notice the details change slightly each time, the actual woman dissolving into archetype. He sings about men who took impossible wounds and kept fighting, about last stands and dramatic deaths. He doesn't sing about the hundreds of warriors who simply existed, who fought competently, survived adequately, and then died of infection or old age or bad luck without doing anything particularly story-worthy. He doesn't sing about the warrior who drowned during a storm, or the one who took a fever and was dead in 3 days, or the woman who was with the band for 2 years before she disappeared one winter, and nobody talks about where she went. You start paying attention to who gets remembered and who doesn't. It's not about skill exactly. Eric is an excellent fighter, better than you'll ever be, but nothing about him is saga-worthy. He's competent, reliable, steady, boring, in the currency of stories. Astrid might make it into a verse or two, but probably not under her real name. She'll become a fearsome warrior woman in someone else's story, her individuality sanded away until she's just a supporting character. And you're not even going to get that. You've survived a dozen raids without distinguishing yourself. You do your part, pull your weight, but never in a way that would make someone think, now that's a story. You're not the fastest, not the strongest, not the most vicious. You're adequate, functional, forgettable. There's a particular cruelty to it. Working this hard, sacrificing this much, enduring the cold and violence and isolation, only to realize that none of it matters enough to be remembered. You burned your entire old life down, alienated your family, made yourself into something between woman and warrior. And for what? So you can die in some forgotten skirmish and disappear without a trace. The Jarl dies in his sleep one winter, just old age, his heart giving out. And within a week, there are already 3 different versions of his death. One has him dying from old battle wounds. One has him speaking prophetic last words. One has him meeting death with such dignity the gods took notice. The truth, that he went to sleep and didn't wake up, isn't memorable enough, so it gets revised, improved, made story-worthy. If they'll do that to the Jarl, what chance do you have? You ask Thorvald about it once, slightly drunk on mead. How do you decide who to remember? He looks at you with eyes that have seen too much and forgotten most of it. I remember what's worth remembering. The exceptional, the dramatic, the meaningful. And everyone else? He shrugs. Everyone else is kindling. Necessary for the fire, but not the fire itself. Kindling. That's what you are, what most warriors are, the nameless masses that fill out shield walls and row ships and die in sufficient numbers to make the survivors' stories interesting. You're not the hero. You're not even a named character. You're background in someone else's saga. You try to imagine someone, 50 years from now, asking about you. What happened to that woman who fought with the war band? And the answer will be vague. Oh, her? She was around for a while. Died, probably. They all die eventually. Not even angry about it. Just factual. The forgetting is so complete, it doesn't register as loss. You watch the younger warriors around the fire, their faces lit with hope that they'll be different, that their deeds will be sung. You want to tell them the truth. Most of you won't be. Most of you will fight and bleed and die and be forgotten before your bodies are cold. But you don't say it. Let them have their hope. The brutal truth settles into your bones. You can sacrifice everything, endure anything, survive against impossible odds, and still disappear into silence. Most warriors are forgotten. Their names lost, their sacrifices reduced to ash, and the vague category of many brave warriors fell that day. The fire crackles. Thorvald starts another saga about people who never existed the way he describes them. This is the forgetting, the truth that most lives, no matter how hard fought, disappear without echo. You're 32 when you finally leave the war band, not in a blaze of glory, not carried out on your shield. You just leave. Your knee is done. Properly done this time, swollen and hot and refusing to bear weight after a training accident that wasn't even dramatic. Gunhild takes one look at it and shakes her head. You're finished, she says, with the matter-of-fact tone of someone identifying spoiled meat. The Jarl gives you a small purse of silver, more than you expected, less than you're worth, and a recommendation to a settlement 2 days' walk north, where they need someone who can teach basic weapon skills to farmers' sons. It's charity dressed up as opportunity. You take it because the alternative is starving. So you walk away from the only life you've built as an adult, limping on your bad knee, carrying everything you own in a pack that feels lighter than it should. Nobody throws you a farewell feast. Astrid nods at you once, an acknowledgement between survivors. Eric clasps your arm and looks uncomfortable. The rest barely notice you're gone. The settlement is small, unremarkable, perched on a hillside with views of fields that turn gold in summer. The people are suspicious at first. You're still strange to them, still marked by violence. But they need what you can teach, and you need to eat. So an arrangement forms. You teach gangly boys how to hold a shield properly, how to keep formation, how to not die immediately if raiders come. You're patient in a way you never were with yourself. You understand now that most of them will never be warriors, that this is just insurance against the worst day of their lives. You teach them anyway. Your knee never properly heals. You walk with a limp now, permanent and pronounced. Some mornings, you can barely stand. The cold still settles into your joints like it's claiming territory. Your shoulder aches. Your hands are scarred and crooked. You're 32, and your body is a map of damage that will never be repaired. But here's the strange thing. You're not miserable. You have a small house, barely more than a room really, but it's yours. You have a bed that doesn't move with the ground, blankets that you don't have to share, a door you can close. You eat regularly. Not well necessarily, but consistently. You're warm most of the time. These small comforts that you once took for granted feel like unspeakable luxury now. There's a woman in the settlement named Sigrid who brings you bread sometimes, still warm from her oven. She's a widow, practical and sharp-tongued, and she doesn't care that you used to be a warrior. She just cares that you fixed her son's axe handle and didn't charge her for it. Friendship, you're learning, doesn't require understanding your past. It just requires showing up consistently in the present. You still dream about the raids sometimes. The blood, the screaming, the monk's face as the axe came down. You wake up gasping, your heart racing, and have to remind yourself where you are. Safe, boring, alive. The dreams are less frequent now, but they never fully leave. Was it worth it? The question haunts you in quiet moments. All that sacrifice, all that pain, all those years of being neither here nor there, what did it actually gain you? You're not famous. You're not wealthy. You're not even particularly respected. You're just alive, limping around a small settlement, teaching farmers' sons to hold shields they'll probably never use in anger. But then you think about the alternative. Going back to that first crossroads, choosing the other path, submission, marriage to a man you hated, a life bent over a loom watching your spirit die by inches. Would that have been better? Would that version of you have been happier? You don't know. You'll never know. What you do know is this. You survived. Not gloriously, not memorably, but thoroughly. You took a life that was suffocating you and broke it open, even though what poured out wasn't what you imagined. You became something. Not a saga hero, not a legend, just a woman who chose violence over submission and somehow lived long enough to reach the other side of it. You're scarred, you're damaged, you're forgotten by everyone who mattered in that old life. But you're here, watching the sun set over fields you don't have to defend, eating bread given freely by a friend you didn't have to fight to earn, and that has to count for something. The woman you were, the desperate, defiant girl who picked up a shield and walked away from everything, is gone. The warrior you became is gone too, left behind with the warband and the endless cold and the weight of a shield you can't carry anymore. What remains is just you, limping, scarred, alive, and surprisingly okay with that. This is what you became. Not a legend, just a survivor who learned that sometimes living quietly is its own form of victory. And there you have it, the life of a Viking shield-maiden, stripped of its romantic veneer and laid bare in all its brutal, unglamorous reality. No saga will sing about her. No stone will mark where she fell. She's just one more forgotten warrior who traded everything familiar for a chance at something different and survived long enough to realize that survival itself might be enough. Tonight, as you drift off to sleep in your warm bed, with your intact knees and your unmemorable safety, maybe spare a thought for all those forgotten warriors, women and men both, who ground themselves down to nothing in pursuit of something they could never quite name. Their names are lost, their stories are dust, but they were real, they suffered, they endured, and in their own way, they mattered. Sleep well.